And now, your host, Couch Tomato!
Hey, I'm Couch Tomato, and I'm joined by...
All
right, welcome to Stuff for Movie Buffs, and today we're talking...
War of the Planet of the Apes.
All right, before we get into any of that, I need everybody, put your right hand on your heart, left hand in the air, repeat after me, say I.
I
am a movie fan.
am a movie fan.
As a movie fan.
As a movie fan.
I won't get mad.
I won't get mad.
I can't get mad.
I can't get mad.
And I'll keep my anger to myself.
And I will keep my anger to myself.
All right, if this is your first time listening to the show, we start off every show like that because I myself, I'm a movie geek. Hulk, our co-host, he's a movie geek as well. And admittedly, sometimes we take movies a little too serious, but by saying that, Creed, Hulk and I promise to not give you guys the side eye, no matter how absurd your opinions are about the movie that we've seen. And guess what? You promised to do the same with us. So if you've seen War for the Planet of the Apes, let us know what you thought by heading over to the Facebook page or hitting us up on Twitter to give us your opinions. And we promise we won't ridicule you guys. But also make sure to subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, or wherever you go for your podcast. Speaking of SoundCloud, actually, I don't know if you heard, Hope, but I don't know how much longer they'll be around.
Wow.
There was some news surfacing that those guys are going out of business. So it's like worse than Ghostbusters on Ghostbusters 2. Those guys are heading towards Chapter 11 or something, but who knows? We'll see. You heard anything about that, by the way?
Not since you brought it up. Like, this is all first time I'm hearing all this stuff.
All right, but we're here to talk about movies. So change the subject real quick in 3, 2, 1. Perfect. All right, so this weekend we saw War for the Planet of the Apes, one of my highly anticipated movies for the year 2017. I want to get your overall opinion, Hulk. How do you feel about this franchise, this trilogy?
It's funny because when you text me like the show notes, like just for what we're gonna be talking about and things like that, like what to bring to the table, and I was just like, okay, you mentioned where did I rank this trilogy, and I didn't realize how high and how good of a franchise this is, because outside of a few trilogies here and there, like it's right up there. Like they really put together a masterpiece of 3 movies, which is not easy to do. You know what I'm saying? Usually, for me, a franchise, whenever you watch them, like sometimes maybe the third one falls off, or maybe the first one wasn't as good, but then they bounce back on a second, or the first one's good and then the next 2 are just bad. This one was able to consistently put out 3, honestly to God, good movies that like will resonate years from now. Like this is not something that's just gonna expire, that you look back on it, it's gonna feel dated. Like no, the performances they had, the characters that they built in each one really, really resonated with me, and like this is one of my favorite franchises of all time. Like they did a masterful job.
And I'll tread carefully because I don't want to give anybody hints. Later on in the podcast, we'll be ranking the films in the trilogy. We'll also be ranking other trilogies as well. But I don't want to give away my order, so I have to be careful with my next choice of words. However, when you look at 2014, I thought Dawn of the Planet of the Apes was one of the best movies that came out that year. Keep in mind, 2014 had a lot of heavyweights. You had Guardians of the Galaxy that year. Yep. You had Interstellar, which was my favorite movie that year. You had the Lego movie, which was great. You had Captain America, the Winter Soldier, which before that movie, I hated Captain America, but a lot of people felt the same way. And that movie's one of the best movies in the MCU. You had Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. X-Men. You had X-Men Days of Future Past, which I believe is the best X-Men movie. To keep going, you also had John Wick. The list goes on. 2014 came to play. And the fact that this was my second best movie of that year, and it wasn't something I was expecting, for that reason alone, War for the Planet of the Apes was my most anticipated movie of the year. Comic book or not. Like I circled this on my calendar, and I kept telling people, this movie is going to surprise everyone. So now let's see if the film delivered. So we just saw it this weekend. Let me know your overall thoughts.
I thought it did. I thought it hit all the beats that I wanted it to hit. Even right after like the opening scene, like the opening shots with like I thought it was real interesting how he had like that. I don't know if you remember like the aerial shot where you see like the bullets flying.
Yeah.
And you see like the apes running. I thought that shot was beautiful.
From the gate, they started.
Yeah.
They started that war stuff because, you know, like people do this. They play this game every time. I've seen it with Hunger Games. Like you keep pushing towards a war in a film, and then you use a movie for a setup, right?
Yeah.
And then finally, when you get to the finale, you're still setting up. And I'm like, what are you waiting for? Just jump into the war. With this film, I was surprised because it was just as soon as you start in, it's already gunfire. It's already, you know, they're in the middle of a war, but it takes like a turn, and we'll talk about that as well. So what's the dude name? Matt Reeves, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like he's definitely solid. He created 2. I think he only directed 2 out of the 3, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so yeah, and you're keep in mind when I rank them, and it'll tell you how much, you know, I appreciate Matt Reeves. But I thought this film started off well. Then you also get one thing I love about franchise is when we're not gonna spoil anything, but we're kind of gonna spoil it, but we're not. But you can listen to it because it's really not a spoiler. But one thing I like about franchises is when they're never scared to kill people. Like just it's the real in the real world, people die from like, you know, like natural causes. So why are you scared to kill these guys when their risk for death is higher because they're in the middle of the war? But when I tell you a lot of people die in this movie, I can't say too much. So I like skip the next thing I was going to say. Just know that they're not scared to kill anybody. And by the way, with these franchises, one thing that I like that they've been able to do is I have to look in the mirror, like the Man in the Mirror song with Michael Jackson. And I really have to strive to make a change because human beings are the bad guys in this movie. And the way they lay it out, you almost hate humans. You have to remind yourself when you're leaving the theater, like, oh, forgot, I'm a human. Woof. You know, like the way they play with your head. So overall, starts off with a lot of action. You also get some of those themes, like how man's its own worst enemy. But what's going on with Caesar? If you remember the first film, Caesar is on he can't really trust humans except for James Franco. Yeah. The second film, because of James Franco, he looks for the best in all humans, and that's why he's striving for peace. So more of a MLK type mindset. Yeah. What is he going through in this film?
I like the fact that he had that haunting, like where Koba is like haunting him a little bit. Like he's constantly seeing him in visions.
Best villain in the franchise, by the way.
Yeah. But yeah. And it's like, you could tell, like, even though, you know, he ended up turning on him in the end, like he still like feels terrible about like the way things ended off. You know what I'm saying? Like he still regrets his death, and it's like it haunts him throughout the whole entire movie, like where he just constantly sees visions, like constantly like sees him, you know, where he's half asleep or he's half awake, he's not really sure. And it's,
we call that going crazy where I'm from.
Yeah.
And also, I disagree. I don't know if he regrets his death or it's a situation to where he fears the worst that he's becoming Koba. Because one thing that I like is I always, you know how this whole hashtag Black Lives Matter thing has been kind of like a hot topic over the last couple of years. I always point to the more, you know, if I was growing up during the civil rights movements, I always had more of a appreciation for what Martin Luther King did, to where the only way to truly get rid of your enemy is to almost love them to death. Yeah. You remove their capacity to hate. You know, although I admire what Malcolm was doing, I just feel like if you egg somebody on, if you push me to the edge, I'm going to fight back, and it's the same for your enemy. So we've always seen the MLK side of Caesar, but this isn't a spoiler if you go into this movie, because of what humans keep basically upping the ante on how much they choose to piss him off. Mm-hmm. And this time around, they piss him off to the degree where he's like, forget that. And he puts his Malcolm X hat on, and he's like, they gotta die. You know, so I just like that whole shift, because you, other than like Breaking Bad and like Game of Thrones shows, you really don't see characters make an arc like that, because there's always a predictable arc. Like they start off one way and they end one way, but they just go through sequences that cement who they are.
Yeah.
With this one, he hit a complete 180. But when you see the movie, he comes back around. However, I appreciated that. Now, this movie, when it started off, Hope, tell me if you're on the same page. It starts off with gunfire and you think, all right, cool, we're going to get action. Something happens where the humans do something that pisses off Caesar, and then Caesar has to go on a journey. It gets extremely, I don't want to say boring, but it's like you're waiting for something big to happen, and it's a couple of minutes before something big happens. I honestly was ready to rate this film as like the worst in the franchise during those moments. I'm like, oh, you guys are falling off. For this to be like your third installment, and you're like going on a journey this long, almost. It's like Old Testament long. Like, so everything that happens during that journey, like they're planting seeds. And I would say this movie has like a Holocaust type, slavery type theme. Yeah. That if they didn't, and it's, you also side with the humans because something's going on. Like, and this isn't really a spoiler, but the ape, what do you call it? Disease that was spread at the end of Rise. There's complications to that disease where it's causing it to do something to the humans. But they start planting seeds during that journey and you just don't know what's going on. So by the time you get to the slavery or Holocaust part of the film, you're like, well, I kind of feel where the humans are coming from, but I also feel where Caesar's coming from. So you're torn. And whoa, like I just was like, dang, you know what? I'm on board. Let's go. I don't need to see boom, 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 gunfire every 3 seconds. Like, this film is strong. They're about to do something great. And lo and behold, if you stay on board to the end, they do something great. So I thought that was that element of the film. It really makes you hate humans. And it's like we always, history repeats itself, because even though Walking Dead does that stuff too, because the bad guys are supposed to be the apes. But if you notice in this film, humans become the bad guys to themselves. Like, it's human on human warfare. So that happens in Walking Dead, but it's just cheesy the way they do it. In this movie, it's like the apes are almost a side hustle. Like, okay, we're not really worried about you. We have another threat that we need to worry about, which is, a disease that's spreading. And I'm like, dang, this film these elements are so strong.
Like, it was so smart. Like the political commentary that they did was so subtle. It wasn't like forced down your throat. It didn't like, okay, this is about slavery. Like, no, like they did it.
You can't even relate it only to slavery though, because you could look at it from a Holocaust perspective. You could look at it from like a Egyptian slave perspective, like let my people go, Moses type stuff. And when you see what I want to compare this movie to, I have to see if the plot points match up. I can't say too much right now. It's probably not going to be my highest rated video just because I want to do it because I'm like, whoa, just to show you how powerful this movie is. So stay on the lookout for that. But you don't only have to point it to slavery. Like, you could point to different points in history where humans made the same mistake.
It was like Caesar became Moses. He was Moses at one point. He was MLK.
Bro, I saw that a lot in this movie.
He was like all these different, I was just like, yo, all these different heroes like throughout history. And it was just like, they did it flawlessly. Like, it all worked well together. Like,
I'm saying, you put Caesar in the MCU, I think he kind of... He's second to none even if you compare him to the Avengers. So now let's talk about best trilogies of all time. This movie's a trilogy. I don't know if they're going to continue the franchise because I wasn't a fan of the Planet of the Apes, like the old movies or the Mark Wahlberg, obviously. So I don't know what happens to the humans. Is it like some type of... I don't want to say too much because if you haven't seen those franchises and you don't see this movie...
It's a spoil,
I got to be careful with my words because you'll like piece together what happens in the movie. But I don't know if that's the end of it or they're actually going to continue something. I would like to see it end where they left off. But if they want to squeeze the lemon and make some more money, I wouldn't be mad at them. So now let's talk about trilogies. You can include Star Wars because that movie, it has 6 movies if you're going to the original installments. Plus they have other additions. So I'm talking about trilogies that are pure trilogies, only 3 movies. Let me hear some of your top picks.
All right. The first one for me is Godfather.
And it don't have to be in order, by the way, because I didn't put mine in order. But yeah.
Okay. I just thought, that's the greatest trilogy of all time. Those are first two are my two favorite movies of all time. Third one, still love it.
Yeah, because you admitting it's bad at that point. I have the same passion for like Mighty Ducks 3. I know it's a bad movie, but I always feel inclined to tell people, hey man, I love the trilogy, even though I know part 3 sucks.
Yeah. Same thing with The Dark Knight. It's funny because a lot of people, like, I'm weird. Like, to me, Rises is my favorite one out of the 3. Like, I'm like the only one on the planet, but like I still, Batman Begins, Dark Knight Rises. Like, I thought Nolan, he's my favorite director. That's my favorite Batman movies. Like, I just think it was masterfully done. I'll put that second. And then,
before you move on, can I say something though?
Yep.
Because I always tell people, if you take Joker out of The Dark Knight, it's really not that great of a movie.
Mm-hmm.
So I understand where you're coming from with the Dark Knight Rises. I still put The Dark Knight as the better movie. However, the hate that Dark Knight Rises got, I never understood. I thought Bane was a solid villain. That movie just goes on too long, and that's my main issue with it.
Yeah, thank you. Like, I've been defending that movie for years, and like I don't get it, but it is what it is. And then lastly, it's funny, like I said, like I mentioned earlier in the podcast, like when I was thinking back, it's like all these trilogies, like, I like it. I wasn't like a big Lord of the Rings fan. Like, I wasn't really get too caught up in it. The Matrix fell off for me after, like, I guess midway through Reloaded. I'm trying to think of other trilogies, like,
since you're at a loss for words, may I pick up the baton?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. And these are movies where like I said, when it comes to Mighty Ducks and trilogies like that, I like certain movies even though I know they're bad. It's almost like the kid in me saying, "No, it's force feeding me to like the trilogy."
Yeah.
I'm going with trilogies that I feel like stepping away, coming back to it. If it's on the TV, I could watch it. I feel like the films are solid. There's really no weak links in the franchise. Ocean's trilogy, I don't have a problem with any of those movies.
Me either.
People complain about Ocean's 12.
Me either.
Honestly, as a heist movie, it's one of the best heist movies.
Exactly.
People don't understand that heist genre is kind of watered down. So as bad as people think Ocean's 12 was, when you separate it from its trilogy, its respective trilogy, and you compare it to other heist movies, it's still an awesome heist film. So I love Ocean's 11, one of the best heist films ever. I think Ocean's 13 is up there with it as well.
Yep.
I just love when people are robbing casinos. Next up, the Cornetto trilogy. I don't have an issue with any of those films. If I had to rank them, Shaun of the Dead's my favorite. The World's End is second. Hot Fuzz is third, but all of them are solid. For that trilogy alone, that's why Edgar Wright is my second favorite director next to Quentin Tarantino. Moving along, Toy Story.
Ooh, I forgot about Toy Story.
Personally, I think this is the best trilogy of all time. There's no weak link in the film, and I think everyone could agree.
Mm-hmm.
I think the weakest link in the film is Toy Story 2, but it's still considered one of the better Pixar movies.
Yep.
Toy Story 3, low key, is the best Toy Story movie.
Yeah, which is crazy.
Even though I know Toy Story 1 is better, it's just Toy Story 3, when you talk about they got better over time, that's crazy. You don't see people getting better with age unless you're talking about wine.
Yeah.
Honorable mention, I'm going to include Matrix. Reason being, I think Matrix is solid. I think Matrix 2, at the time of its release, it was solid because you got to remember, they did that. They were the first ones to pioneer that 6-month release thing. And what I'm talking about, Harry Potter,
Hunger Games,
Part 7, Part 1, and Harry Potter 8, which is Part 7, Part 2. They filmed the films close together to where they released one and then 6 or 7 months later, they released another. People were anticipating the third installment because I think they loved Part 2, but when the third installment came out and it was such a letdown,
trashed Reloaded.
It trashed everything that the second one stood for. Now it's dated because when he's fighting this CGI, the clones, it just looks it looks like some animated series, some Netflix original. However, I would say, like looking for the movies and what they tried to accomplish on, I appreciate what they were trying to do. I think they spend a little bit too much time in Zion. I'm like, all right, cool guys, let's go to the Matrix. And Part 3 is where the wheels fall off. But I think you saw some some issues with part 2 that nobody understands. But when I watched it recently, it was like, when I say recently, I'm talking about 8 months ago or something. I was like, you know what? Wow, I forgot that, the war with the Sentinels and Zion was actually pretty epic, even for now. Like, they showed a lot of that stuff. So, honorable mentions Matrix, but if you're asking me the best, oh shoot, I left one off the list. Back to the Future, solid. All of them are great. Great storytelling, awesome script. One of the few scripts that it's actually just as entertaining if you read or watch the movie. So, Ocean's trilogy, Back to the Future trilogy, Toy Story trilogy, honorable mention The Matrix, but really not, because I could give an honorable mention to Dark Knight as well.
Yeah. Like, to me, I can't believe I forgot about Toy Story, because that's one of the rare ones where it just, like you said, it just got better over time. And it's just like, for me, the third one's my favorite one. Like, I think it emotionally resonated. I guess because of my age too, watching it at the time. Like, I guess it emotionally resonated with me. And then, like you said, like, I defended Matrix for the longest time, but then I think it was like, for me, like maybe around the 8-month mark, the same way, like where I took the opposite approach, where it was just like, yes, this is like one of my favorite trilogies. But then this time when I watched it, I was just like, I could see why, I could see why it gets some of his criticisms.
I don't think, because I basically, backstory, I was hating on the film with the frat brother, and he was like, Barry, just watch it. Like, tune out what everybody's saying, but go back and watch it by yourself in the privacy of your own home. And I did it. And I was like, wow, I forget that the movie did this. I forgot it had this element. By the way, Keanu Reeves is one of the best actors when it comes to choreography, action choreography.
Yeah.
And if you like action movies, I don't know if it'll be a crime to not appreciate those films on some type of level, but really just the CGI and certain things that I felt like they got on the nose at the third film. But when I'm comparing them to other trilogies, it's still on the top of that list. There aren't that much good trilogies. Like, you could go to Indiana Jones and that doesn't count as a trilogy anymore. You see, everything people count as trilogies, they aren't true trilogies. I'm like, well, they continued this franchise.
Yeah.
And if you really want to get technical, the Dark Knight trilogy is kind of mixed up with Batman Lego Man, but I'm not gonna do that.
No.
I'm not gonna be that guy. All right, so now, for the moment you guys have all been waiting for, we just saw War on the heels of Dawn that prefaced Rise. How do these movies stack up against one another?
Ooh, this was tough.
Let me hear you give your number one. I'll give my number one. You give your number two. I'll give my number two. You give your number three. I'll give my number three. And we'll see who everyone agrees with more. So just hit us up on Facebook, Twitter, if you guys agree or disagree. I want to say my picks are solid and they'll represent a majority of the movie going audience, but who knows? So number one, number three, let's do it. Reverse everything I just said. So excuse me. Number three, what's the worst film in this installment?
I'll probably go with War. But I hate to use the way you said worst. But it's just like,
I know, asterisk on the word worst.
Yeah, but I would say it's like my least favorite out of the three. And then this was so tough because I love Rise so much. Like, I love that movie. But
I could see our lists are going to be oil and water right now.
I don't know. Like, I don't know. Like, I'll put, like, I love so much just because of the ending and the human story.
Well, you actually, you can't do that because you're only supposed to give your three. But by the way you're talking, I could tell what your one is going to be. So you gave me your three and you gave me War. I'm going to disagree, and I'm going to say Rise is the weakest installment of the franchise.
Damn, you hurt me. Oh,
I'm talking about James Franco. That one. I just want to make sure we're on the same page.
I know exactly.
I thought the film was good. However, I wasn't in love with this franchise when film came out. I just thought,
like, that was I was shocked. Like, when he first spoke, that was like,
that's the best moment of the movie, but give me another defining moment.
But it's just the overall story. It's like the way it sneaks up on you. It doesn't even feel like a Planet of the Apes. Like, it doesn't feel like it's something like that's trying to build to a larger universe. Like, it just feels like.
But that's more appreciation for the trilogy as a whole. They did it little by little. I don't know if you can
that's not
only
easy
credit.
to do nowadays. Nowadays you gotta throw in stuff. Nowadays you gotta like try to capture the viewer. You know what I'm saying? Like with this, they just was like, we're gonna tell this story, and then later on at the very end we'll hint to something bigger. You know what I'm saying? And that's Hollywood doesn't do that anymore, and they did that so perfectly.
Well, you know what? And I said they don't have defining moments, but let me stop, because at the time, before everyone started doing San Francisco Bridge action sequences,
yeah,
because it's in every movie now. If it's in California, you're going to have a showdown on the San Francisco Bridge.
Everything.
So that was awesome when I first saw it. I thought some of those, the crazy big gorilla that was like bulletproof, that was going one-on-one with the helicopters, was awesome.
Yeah.
I thought Koba, when he finally got his revenge, I thought that was great. It's a solid movie, but if you're comparing it to the other two, I just think this one pales in comparison, because remember, you're almost on the human side at that point. And I really,
that's
I appreciate the
franchise too, because I was conflicted. I was conflicted. I didn't know who to like really, because I was on the human side, but I also understood what Caesar was going through. Like it was perfect.
All right, so just to make sure we're on the same page, you thought they were perfectly. No, that you think they deserved to get that virus. So you're saying, when you say the humans, you're conflicted.
No, I understood. They're like, okay, if you're close to curing Alzheimer's, if you're close to curing, Parkinson's, all these degenerative diseases, like I understand the risk that they took. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, so definitely you're on the human side, because now you think it's okay to experiment on animals,
no, I'm not
as
saying
long as it's for the betterment of mankind.
I'm not saying that, but
you are conflicted. Another word is confused, but I digress, because I know what your number one is going to be. What's your number two?
Rise is number two, and then
wait. You can't say your number one yet. It sounds like that's what you were gonna do. Just give me your number two. Rise is your number two, and you already kind of praised this film.
Yeah.
For me, I'm putting War. So now Showdown.
Whoa, we're really oil and water.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like War, I thought was awesome. Like, especially for you being a Bible-fearing guy, I thought you would have appreciated some of the storytelling elements.
I do, but
in War.
No, it's just, I don't know. It was just something about Dawn and like Koba and Caesar. I don't know. Like it's
better villain.
Yeah. Like I just felt, I don't know. Like I walked out of the theater more amped up, I guess. But with this, like I still, like I was more emotional. Like I don't want to spoil anything, but I don't know. Like that's another thing too. It's just like, just because I'm ranking them, like they're only separated by maybe like a percentage point. You know what I'm saying? Like it's all
standard deviation of probably two.
Like it's like they're all like great. So, but yeah, I felt Dawn was like my favorite. So
yeah, you still told me your number one, even though I told you to hold off. But Dawn is my favorite too. So we're on the same page with that. Back to War though. The thing that I feel is so awesome about this film, you realize that in number one, I thought science was going to be the thing that killed them at the end, but it ended up being Mother Nature. Mm-hmm. You just got to stay to the end to watch that. Basically, everybody gets. I don't want to say anything, but I'll say whatever happened to Mufasa, it pales in comparison to what happens to certain people in this movie, right? Stampede, similar to a stampede, and that's not spoiling anything because I'm throwing them off, to be honest. All right, so I thought it was poetic how human beings are their only enemy, because as much as they want to blame the apes, in reality, if like let's say swine flu is what got us, like in 2006, whatever year that was going crazy.
Yeah.
People wouldn't be mad at pigs. They would be mad at more like, a better example. So you know that theory that it's a popular theory that they're like AIDS is man-made or something, and it started in Africa with the doctor experimenting on a baboon or something. If that was true, human beings wouldn't rebel against baboons. They would rebel against government for doing a secretive event like that and keeping it under wraps. So I don't know if people would be more upset with the apes as they would be more in war with each other. Like, okay, you know what? Forget the government. They're the ones that put us in this predicament, killing millions and millions of people. So human beings would naturally fight against each other, right? That's what I think would happen. In this movie, you see it because the effects of the disease are more catastrophic than we originally imagined. So I'm like, and it causes them to come to a conflict to where it's like, well, science could fix it. And they were like, no, man could fix it. And that causes a war between mankind. And I was like, I like that. So no matter what, it's almost human beings' nature. It's like a reverse Darwinism to where it's forget survival of the fittest. We kill ourselves. It's almost like reverse micro evolution. It's like we try to kill our own species. I thought that was just like, that's how humans act. Everything that we do to benefit mankind, in actuality, it's destroying the planet, which is in turn, or destroying our ecosystem, which is destroying us. We just don't realize that. And I'm like, you know what? And it's not in my face the way they preached it, but you guys could be at number 2. Number 1, we agree. We both put Dawn. Why is that the best movie?
I think, like you said, like the villain, the Cobra aspect, like overall the action, like I felt more engaged with it. Not to say War didn't have its action, but like I just felt more engaged with this action.
I agree.
And like you said, like with War, there was like that little boring part, like same here with me, like where I was just like, and for me, I caught it late. So it's just like I was kind of falling asleep and I was like, damn, let me wake up. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Don't forget they were visiting gas stations in Dawn and, you know, slow dancing to Vietnam music.
That too.
Yeah, but it overall, they had, even their slow moments were very impressive in Dawn because you were watching the apes evolve. Like they were learning sign language. They were building a society. Stuff like that is cool when you watch it the first time around.
Yeah, exactly. So like and like you said, like I don't know where I had Dawn. I think I may have had it in like my top 2 as well in 2014 because like you said, that was such a great year of movies. But that I really resonated with that when I was just like, okay, I cannot wait for War. You know what I'm saying? Like I can't wait for this movie to come out. But yeah, like I always put like I like thinking back, I was just like, okay, out of the 3, like Dawn was like my most favorite. So
all right, so how about this? I have 1 to 3, Dawn, War, Rise. Hope, correct me if I'm wrong. You have War, Rise, Dawn. Oh, excuse me, 1 to 3. You have Dawn, Rise, War. I'm anxious to hear what you guys think. Hit us up on Facebook, Twitter, or even in this comment section and just let us know what you think. Rank them. And somebody please support me because I want to get an overall feeling of how people felt about War. It's human nature sometimes to be prisoner of the moment, but sometimes I'm very critical on films. So I think that if you ask me a year from now, I don't think my numbers are going to change, but who knows? But go ahead.
Can Andy Serkis get like an Oscar nom? Like, yo, this guy is a beast. Like, I know like there's with CGI and stuff like that. I hope like Andy Serkis gets some kind of recognition like for what he's done.
I would love that to happen, but I doubt it. They're hating on that guy. They hate on one reason why I don't watch the Oscars is because they pick certain stereotypical movies that they only consider great when I think you could find enjoyment regardless of the genre. So yeah. I don't even think he should feel empowered by that type of award. And I know he's not going to get an Oscar nom, even though he deserved it technically for War.
Yeah.
Not War, but
Dawn.
Yeah. But hey guys, it's about that time. I want to thank you guys for joining us today. Before you leave, if you like what you heard, make sure to share it with a friend on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, or wherever you go for your podcast. Don't let this be the last time we hear from you or you hear from us. Support the show by giving us a rating and a review on iTunes, guys. It would really mean a lot. Join us next week and check out the show notes on where to find us weekly. It's Couch Tomato Films on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram, and Couch Tomato Film on Twitter. Other than that, peace.